My husband refused to eat my cooking for 6 months, straight months. 6 months. I couldn't believe it, saying he'd rather order out. Then I met the restaurant owner. He was ordering from every night. The moment I stood at the door of what was supposed to be a restaurant, and a woman in her late 20s answered, wearing nothing but a silk robe at 3 in the afternoon, I knew my marriage was over. But what made my blood run cold wasn't just seeing my husband's mistress. It was recognizing the diamond earrings she was wearing, the ones that had mysteriously disappeared from my jewelry box 3 months ago, and realizing that for 6 months my husband hadn't just been rejecting my cooking. He'd been paying his side chick to cook for him while telling me my food wasn't good enough, spending hundreds of dollars weekly on her restaurant. That was actually her apartment. All while I stayed home trying desperately to improve recipes for a man who was never planning to eat them. My name is Diane Harrison, and I'm 42 years old. I've been married to my husband Marcus for 14 years, and for most of that time, I prided myself on being a good cook. I learned from my mother and grandmother, real home cooking, made with love and care. Marcus always seemed to enjoy my meals, often asking for seconds and complimenting my dishes. But 6 months ago, everything changed. Marcus came home from work one evening, and when I served dinner, my famous pot roast that he'd always loved, he barely touched it. "Is something wrong?" I asked, noticing he was just pushing food around his plate. "It's fine," Marcus said without enthusiasm. "I'm just not that hungry. I had a big lunch." I thought nothing of it at first, but it happened again the next night and the night after that. Marcus would take a few bites of whatever I cooked, then claim he was full or that he'd eaten too much during the day. After a week of this, I finally asked him directly, "Marcus, are you okay? You've barely eaten any of my cooking lately. Are you feeling sick?" He looked uncomfortable. "Diane, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I think maybe your cooking has gotten a little repetitive. We've been eating the same things for years, and I'm just kind of bored with it." His words stung, but I tried to be understanding. 14 years of cooking for someone. Maybe I had fallen into a rut. "Okay, I can try new recipes. What would you like me to make?" "Actually," Marcus said carefully, "I've been thinking maybe we should just order out more often. You work hard too. You shouldn't have to cook every night. Let's just get takeout or delivery. Take some pressure off you." At first, I thought he was being considerate. I had a full-time job as a medical records administrator, and cooking every night was time-consuming. Maybe he was right that we should order out more often. But more often quickly became every single night. Marcus would come home and immediately pull out his phone. "I'm ordering from that new place," he'd say. "Don't worry about cooking." When I suggested I could still cook and we could save money, Marcus brushed it off. "Money isn't an issue. I just really prefer restaurant food right now. Your cooking is fine, Diane, but it's just home cooking. I want something more exciting." Every night, Marcus would order from the same number. I noticed because he'd always step into another room to place the order, speaking in low tones. When the food arrived, always delivered by different delivery drivers, never the same person, it would be in plain containers with no restaurant name or logo. "What restaurant is this from?" I asked one evening, looking at the unmarked containers of beautifully prepared food. "It's a new place, kind of boutique. They don't have a big marketing presence yet," Marcus explained. "But the food is incredible. Try some." I tasted the food. It was good. Home-style cooking, actually similar to what I made, but with maybe a few different seasonings. Nothing that seemed worth the premium price Marcus was clearly paying. Over the next few months, I watched my husband reject every single meal I attempted to cook while ordering from this mysterious restaurant every night. When I tried to cook his favorite dishes, he'd claim he wasn't hungry. When I tried new recipes, he'd say they were interesting but then order out anyway. "Marcus, this is getting expensive," I said one evening, looking at our credit card statement. "You're spending $400 or $500 a week on takeout. That's over $2,000 a month. I can cook perfectly good meals for a fraction of that. I work hard, I earn good money, I can spend it on food if I want," Marcus said defensively. "Why are you making such a big deal about this?" "Because you won't eat anything I cook anymore. For 14 years you loved my cooking, and now suddenly nothing I make is good enough? It hurts, Marcus." It feels like you're rejecting me, not just my food. That's ridiculous, Marcus said, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. It's just food, Diane. Don't be so dramatic. But it didn't feel like just food. It felt like Marcus was choosing something else, someone else, over me, even though I couldn't prove it yet. I started paying closer attention. Marcus would always order around 5:30 p.m., stepping into the garage or the bedroom to make the call. The food always arrived within 30 to 40 minutes, which seemed fast for a restaurant that supposedly wasn't nearby. And Marcus never wanted to give me the restaurant's name or number so I could order myself when he was working late. It's easier if I just handle it, Marcus would say when I asked for the information. They know my preferences, and they have my credit card on file. 3 months into this pattern, I started noticing other changes. Marcus was dressing better. New cologne, nicer clothes, spending more time on his appearance. He was coming home later from work, claiming project deadlines and extra hours. He was on his phone constantly, texting and smiling in ways that seemed secretive. I wasn't stupid. I knew these were classic signs of an affair. But I had no proof, and when I tried to discuss my concerns with Marcus, he made me feel paranoid and insecure. "You're imagining things," he'd say. "I'm working hard, I'm taking care of my appearance, and I'm enjoying good food. None of that means I'm cheating. You're being insecure because you're upset about the cooking thing, but that's your issue, not mine." My best friend Shauna was the one who finally gave me the push I needed to investigate. We were having coffee one afternoon, and I was telling her about Marcus's behavior. "Girl, something is definitely wrong," Shauna said bluntly. "Men don't suddenly stop eating their wife's cooking and spend thousands on mystery takeout unless something else is going on. You need to find out where that food is really coming from."
How?
I asked. "He won't tell me the restaurant name, and he always makes the calls privately." "Check the phone records," Shauna suggested. "You're on the same phone plan, right? Log into the account and see what number he's been calling every single night." I felt guilty doing it, like I was invading Marcus's privacy. But my gut was screaming that something was wrong, and I needed to know the truth. That evening, while Marcus was in the shower, I logged into our phone account and pulled up his call records. Sure enough, there was one number that appeared almost daily around 5:30 p.m. for the past 6 months. The same number called over 100 times. I wrote down the number and waited until Marcus was asleep that night. Then I took my phone into the bathroom, closed the door, and called the number. It rang 4 times, and then a woman's voice answered, young and sultry. "Hey baby, calling about dinner tomorrow? I was thinking maybe I could make your favorite." My heart stopped. That was not a restaurant. That was a woman who thought she was talking to my husband. "Who is this?" I asked, my voice shaking. There was a pause. "Who is this?" the woman asked back, her tone instantly changing from flirtatious to defensive. "This is Diane. Diane Harrison. I'm calling because my husband has been calling this number every single night for 6 months, supposedly ordering food from a restaurant. But you don't sound like a restaurant." Another long pause. "I don't know what you're talking about. You have the wrong number." "No, I don't. This number has been called from my husband Marcus Harrison's phone almost every single day. So I'll ask again, who are you?" The woman hung up. I stood in my bathroom, hands shaking, knowing with absolute certainty that I'd just spoken to my husband's mistress. The next morning, I made a decision. I called in sick to work and waited until Marcus left for his job. Then I used a reverse phone lookup app to trace the number. It came back registered to a Simone Davis at an address across town. Not a restaurant address, but a residential apartment complex. I drove to the address, my heart pounding. It was a nice apartment complex, nothing fancy, but well-maintained. I found the apartment number and knocked on the door. A young woman answered, mid to late 20s, beautiful, wearing a silk robe in the middle of the afternoon like she'd just woken up. And on her ears were my diamond earrings, the ones that had gone missing from my jewelry box 3 months ago. "Can I help you?" she asked, looking me up and down with barely concealed irritation. "Are you Simone Davis?" I asked, proud that my voice came out steady. "Who wants to know?"
I'm Diane Harrison.
Marcus Harrison's wife. Simone's expression changed from irritation to something like defiance, mixed with guilt. "Oh, I called you last night. You hung up on me. And now I'm here in person, and I'd like to know exactly what kind of restaurant you're running that has my husband calling you every single night." Simone had the decency to look uncomfortable. "Look, I don't want any drama. Marcus told me you guys had an arrangement." "An arrangement?" I felt my anger rising. "What kind of arrangement?" "He said you didn't care what he did as long as he was discreet. He said you barely even live together anymore, more like roommates." The classic affair lies. My husband was telling his mistress we had an open marriage while telling me we were perfectly fine. "We don't have an arrangement," I said coldly. "We have a marriage. A marriage where I cook dinner every night that my husband refuses to eat because apparently he's been paying you to cook for him instead." "Or is it really just about the food, Simone?" She crossed her arms defensively. "Marcus and I have a relationship. We've been together for 8 months. 8 months. 2 months before he stopped eating my food. He'd already been cheating when he started rejecting my cooking. And the food? The deliveries every night. I cook for him," Simone said, almost proudly. "He comes here after work most days, I make him dinner, we spend time together, and then he takes food home with him, so you won't get suspicious about where he's been. He pays me for the food and my time." The picture became crystal clear. Marcus wasn't just having an affair. He was essentially paying this woman to play house with him. She'd cook for him, spend the evening with him, and then pack up food for him to take home and pretend he'd ordered from a restaurant, all while making me feel inadequate about my cooking. "Those are my earrings," I said, pointing to the diamonds in Simone's ears. She touched them instinctively. "Marcus gave these to me. Marcus stole them from my jewelry box and gave them to you. Those earrings were a gift from my mother. Take them off." "I don't have to. Take them off right now, or I'm calling the police and reporting stolen property. Those earrings are worth over $3,000, and I can prove they're mine with photos and receipts." Simone's defiance crumbled. She removed the earrings and handed them to me, her hand shaking. I looked at this young woman who'd been sleeping with my husband, cooking for him, playing house with him while he rejected everything I offered. And I felt not just anger but a strange kind of pity. "How much does he pay you?" I asked. "What?" "For the food, the time, all of it. How much?" Simone hesitated. $500 a week. Sometimes more if he stays overnight on business trips that aren't really business trips. $2,000 a month. Over $12,000 in 6 months, not counting the gifts he'd stolen from me to give her. "And what happens when the money stops?" I asked. "Do you think Marcus is going to leave me and marry you? Is that what he promised?" Simone's face told me that was exactly what Marcus had promised. "He's not going to leave," I said, not with cruelty, but with certainty. "Men like Marcus don't leave. They keep a wife for respectability and a mistress for excitement, and they play both of you for as long as they can get away with it. But I'm done being played." I left Simone's apartment and drove straight to a divorce attorney's office. I walked in without an appointment and told the receptionist I needed to see someone immediately about divorcing my cheating husband. The attorney I met with, a sharp woman named Patricia Chun, listened to my story and took notes. "Your husband has been spending significant marital funds on his affair partner," Patricia said. "In your state, that's considered dissipation of marital assets. We can argue that he owes you reimbursement for that money in the divorce settlement." She helped me gather documentation. Phone records showing the constant calls to Simone, credit card statements showing the payments Marcus had been making to her through Venmo and other apps, everything I needed to prove what he'd been doing. When Marcus came home that evening, I was waiting in the living room with all the evidence spread out on the coffee table. "What's all this?" Marcus asked, seeing the papers. "This is 6 months of phone records showing you calling your mistress, Simone, every single day. These are the payments you've been making to her, over $12,000 so far. And these," I held up my mother's earrings, "are the jewelry you stole from me to give to her." Marcus's face went white. "Diane, I can explain. Don't bother. I went to Simone's apartment today. She told me everything, how you've been going there after work, how she cooks for you and spends evenings with you, how you take food home to maintain your cover story about ordering from a restaurant. She even told me about the overnight stays on your fake business trips. Marcus sank into a chair, all his defenses crumbling. It's not what you think. Really? What is it then? Because what I think is that you've been having an affair for 8 months, spending thousands of our money on another woman, rejecting every meal I cooked while making me feel inadequate and boring, and stealing my jewelry to give to your mistress. What part of that am I misunderstanding? Marcus had no answer. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice steady despite my shaking hands. I've filed for divorce. You're going to move out of this house by the end of the week. My attorney is going to argue that you dissipated marital assets to fund your affair, and you're going to pay me back every dollar you spent on Simone, plus give me a larger share of our assets to compensate. And you're never going to make me feel bad about my cooking again because we both know that was never really about the food. Marcus tried to apologize, tried to claim it had been a mistake, tried to say he wanted to work things out. But I was done. The divorce took 4 months. Marcus tried to minimize his payments to Simone, claiming they were just gifts to a friend. But my attorney had documentation of everything, including text messages I subpoenaed where Marcus explicitly talked about their affair and his payments for her time. The judge was not sympathetic to Marcus. Spending over $12,000 of marital funds on an affair partner while making his wife feel inadequate was exactly the kind of bad faith behavior that courts punished. I got the house, 65% of our savings and retirement accounts, and Marcus had to pay my attorney fees. As for Simone, Marcus cut off contact with her the moment the divorce started costing him serious money. Turns out when he could no longer afford to pay $500 a week plus gifts, she wasn't interested in the relationship anymore. She was already seeing someone new, probably someone else's husband, before our divorce was even finalized. Today I'm 43 years old, divorced, living in my house, and cooking meals that I actually enjoy eating. I've taken cooking classes for fun, not to please anyone else, but because I genuinely love food and wanted to expand my skills. I've started dating someone new, a kind man named Trevor, who loves my cooking and tells me so every time I make him dinner. The first time he asked for seconds, I actually teared up, realizing how much damage Marcus had done to my confidence by rejecting something I'd put love and effort into every single day. The experience taught me that when someone starts rejecting something they used to love about you, it's worth asking why. Marcus didn't suddenly develop refined taste in food. He developed taste for another woman and used food as an excuse to spend time with her while making me feel like I wasn't good enough. It taught me that financial infidelity is real and devastating. Marcus spent over $12,000 on his affair, money that should have been going toward our future, our retirement, our life together. Every time he handed Simone $500 for cooking him dinner and sleeping with him, he was stealing from our marriage. Most importantly, it taught me that home cooking is an act of love, and anyone who rejects that love while secretly getting it from someone else doesn't deserve either version. When I stood at Simone's door and saw her wearing my stolen earrings, I felt not just betrayed but foolish. How had I spent 6 months trying to improve my cooking, questioning my skills, feeling inadequate, when the problem was never my food at all? My husband didn't refuse to eat my cooking because it wasn't good enough. He refused because he was already eating at someone else's table, and he needed an excuse for why he wasn't hungry at home. That restaurant he ordered from every night was never a restaurant. It was his mistress's apartment, and the meal service he was paying for wasn't really about the food. It was about paying for her time, her attention, her willingness to play house with a married man. The saddest part is that Simone's cooking wasn't even better than mine. She admitted it herself. She mostly made simple dishes, nothing fancy. Marcus didn't choose her food over mine because of quality. He chose it because it came with her, and he was willing to pay thousands of dollars and destroy his marriage to have both. But he lost both in the end. He lost a wife who loved him and a home where dinner was made with care every night. And he lost his mistress the moment he couldn't afford to pay her anymore. Sometimes the man who says your cooking isn't good enough isn't really critiquing your food. He's creating a cover story for where he's really eating dinner. And sometimes the best recipe for happiness is removing that man from your kitchen entirely and cooking for people who actually appreciate what you're serving, starting with yourself.